The scream tore through the twilight. Eliza Vance heard it before she saw the blood, a sound that didn't belong in the quiet, snow-covered forest. It wasn't the bugle of an elk or the cry of a coyote. It was human terror, primal and sharp, mixed with the snarling fury of a predator. Welcome back to our channel, where we explore stories of resilience and the most unexpected bonds forged in adversity. We all carry scars, but some scars define us. If you believe that even the most brutal winter, hope can still take root, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Because today's story is a reminder that true courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the choice to love again. Eliza tightened her grip on her rifle, her breath fogging in a white cloud before her. She was used to the silence of this Montana wilderness. Silence had been her companion since the winter fever took her husband, Mark, 2 years ago. But this sound was an invasion. She ran toward it, her deerskin boots sinking deep into the powder. The smell of gunpowder and fresh blood hit her even before she reached the clearing. And then she saw the nightmare. 5 wolves. Big, gray, and hungry. They were circling a fallen man, his horse's carcass steaming in the cold, a dark crimson stain spreading across the white snow. Eliza didn't hesitate. She raised her rifle and fired 2 shots into the air. The crack echoed off the canyons. The wolves startled, scattering but not leaving. They lingered at the tree-line, a dozen eyes glowing like coals in the dusk. They were waiting. The man, a cowboy, maybe 30, lay still. His left leg was a ruined mess, torn open to the bone. Just leave me, he rasped, teeth gritted. Not worth it. Eliza ignored him. The blood was pulsing. Arterial. He had minutes, not hours. She ripped her own thick scarf from her neck, the one piece of wool that kept her warm, and fashioned a tourniquet. She wrapped it high on his thigh, above the wound, and used a broken branch to twist it tight. He screamed a raw, agonizing sound, and then went limp. Stay awake, she commanded, slapping his cheek. You don't get to die. He was heavy, dead weight, but she'd hauled deer carcasses to her cabin before. He was just another piece of meat that needed saving. She dragged him on her trapper's sledge. His blood soaked her sheepskin coat, alarmingly warm. The wolves followed 50 yards back, patient as death. Among the items spilled from his saddlebag, something glinted, a worn gold wedding ring and a child's drawing. 3 clumsy stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. Her heart tightened. He wasn't just a stranger. He was someone's. Clara, he mumbled, delirious. Told you. I come back, even broken. Eliza's cabin emerged through the sudden blizzard like a promise. Lamplight in a single window. She hauled the stranger inside, barred the door, and only then allowed herself to shake. She looked through the window. The wolf eyes were still out there. They weren't done with him, and apparently, neither was she. For 3 days, the man, Silas Croft, burned in the grip of fever. Eliza changed blood-soaked bandages, spooned thin broth between his cracked lips, and listened to him confess his sins to ghosts. She learned his wife's name was Clara, and his son's was Leo, age 5. She heard the guilt that carved channels in his fever talk. I wasn't there, he'd whisper, hot tears tracking down his temples. God forgive me. I wasn't there. Eliza understood it all too well. 2 years ago, cholera had taken Mark while she was in town buying flour. A trip that should have taken 1 day. When she returned, the house was silent. Guilt was a language they both spoke fluently. On the 4th morning, his fever broke. Silas woke to find Eliza asleep in the chair beside his makeshift bed, her face gray with exhaustion. He studied her, strands of fiery red hair escaping her messy braid. Her worn hands were folded in her lap. It was the kind of tired that came from caring too much. You should have left me, he said, his voice a harsh rasp. Maybe, she replied, her eyes fluttering open. She stood, poured him a cup of water. But I didn't. Their first real look passed between them. It wasn't just gratitude or curiosity. It was recognition. 2 haunted souls, finding an unexpected reflection in a tiny cabin in the middle of winter. A sharp knock interrupted the moment. Eliza's face tightened. Stay quiet. She opened the door to Gideon, the town supply runner, a thin man with shifty eyes. His gaze slid past her, fixing on Silas's form in the bed. "Just checking on you, Mrs. Vance. Heard you had company," he said, his voice overly sweet. "An injured traveler. Christian duty," Eliza said, her voice flat. "Of course." Gideon's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'll let the folks in town know you're managing. All alone out here with a strange man. Tain't tea proper." After he left, Eliza stared at her reflection in the window pane. She still wore Mark's wedding ring on a chain around her neck. Another ghost she carried. "Storm's coming," she said, though the sky was clear. "You'll need to stay until you're strong enough to travel." Silas heard the lie and the hope buried beneath it. 1 week passed. Silas could take 3 steps before the pain in his knee buckled him. "Enough to leave," he announced. Eliza poured coffee as if she hadn't heard. Outside, the first cardinal of spring sang. It was the kind of spring that promised warmth and delivered frost. He tried again. "I should go before I ruin you." "Ruin?" She finally looked at him. "This town decided I was ruined when I kept this homestead instead of remarrying. You're just their latest excuse." "Then tell me why you stayed," he said. So she did. Widowed at 25. Refused to sell the land Mark had bled for. She turned down 3 marriage proposals from men who wanted her land more than they wanted her. The town called her unnatural, stubborn, proud. "And you?" she asked. Silas's story came slower, laced with pain. Clara and Leo, dead 18 months from diphtheria while he was 200 miles away on a cattle drive. Since then, he'd been drifting, taking dangerous jobs, half hoping death would find him. "We're both just haunting places," he said quietly. "Not living in them." Eliza opened her mouth to respond, but hoofbeats interrupted. Gideon again, this time with the church women. Mrs. Hemlock, 60 and righteous, didn't wait for an invitation. She pushed past Eliza. "Mrs. Vance, this situation is intolerable. A widow and a drifter, unchaperoned. The congregation demands proper arrangements." "He's injured," Eliza said evenly. "And I'm a Christian. That's the whole story." "The whole town is talking," Mrs. Hemlock hissed. "It's a disgrace." "Then let them talk." After they left in a huff, Silas found Eliza on the porch, her shoulders shaking. He sat beside her. He didn't touch her, just offered his presence. Distant wolves howled. "Spring's coming," he said. Neither of them believed it. "We've all known that feeling of being judged. Eliza's quiet strength is a powerful force, but it's being seriously tested. If you've ever had to stand up for what you believe in against a crowd of doubters, share your story in the comments below. Your stories are always a source of inspiration." Silas Croft hadn't built anything in 2 years, not since Leo's unfinished toy box in a Wyoming barn. But here he was, hammer in hand, fixing Eliza's sagging fence while she fed chickens. Domestic life felt like a language he'd forgotten, but somehow still understood. Over the next 2 weeks, he repaired what winter had broken. Fence posts, roof shingles, the crooked barn door. Eliza taught him her land, which creek held trout, where the wild onions grew, and how to calm her nervous old mare. A partnership bloomed through labor. Small intimacies accumulated, hands brushing as they passed tools. Shared laughter when the chickens escaped into the house. Comfortable silences that felt more like conversation. He carved decorative wildflowers into a new fence post, included her initials, EV, and left it as a surprise. Sunday arrived. Eliza attended church alone. Silas watched her right away, then spent the morning carving. She returned early, her jaw tight. They turned their backs during the hymns, she said, her voice void of emotion. The preacher's sermon was about Jezebel. I walked out. Silas had cooked dinner. Badly. The biscuits were burned, the stew too salty. They laughed together. The first genuine joy either had felt in years. "Town thinks I'm Jezebel," she said, her smile fading. "The town's never seen courage on a woman before," Silas replied. The moment stretched. Firelight caught the gold in her red hair. He leaned forward. She didn't pull back. Their lips almost touched. A howl split the night. Close. Too close. Silas grabbed his rifle. Through the window, he saw fresh tracks circling the cabin. Closer than before. They're back, he said. And they're hungry. Eliza loaded her own rifle. They stood watch together until dawn, backs to the wall, shoulders touching. Neither slept. The next day, Elias Thorne sat too comfortably in Eliza's kitchen, his hat on the table like he owned it. A widow needs security, Eliza, he said, as if Silas standing in the doorway didn't exist. Marry me. Restore your reputation. This situation ends. Thorne was 50, wealthy, and used to getting what he wanted. I am not a problem needing your solution, Elias, Eliza said. Thorne's mask slipped. You're making a fool of yourself over a drifter. People are talking, Eliza. Your late husband would be ashamed. Get out. Think carefully. Get out of my house. After Thorne left, Silas paced. Men like him don't take no. He'll find dirt or invent it. Let him try. That evening, courage found them both. Silas stopped pacing, stood before her. I'm falling in love with you, Eliza, he said, his voice cracking. But I'm wrecked inside. I've got nothing to offer you. I don't need whole, she said quietly. I need honest. He kissed her then. Tentative at first, a question. Then desperate. 2 years of loneliness meeting in the middle. She reached up and removed the chain from around her neck, setting Mark's ring on the mantel. I'm done haunting, she whispered. The next morning, hoofbeats shattered their peace. Sheriff Brody, a deputy beside him, unrolled a wanted poster. Wanted, Silas Croft. Murder. Wyoming territory. $500 reward. Eliza's stomach dropped. That's me, Silas said, his face pale. But it's not the whole truth. The sheriff's face was grim. You'll need to come to town, son. Answer some questions. He's not going anywhere until you hear his side, Eliza said, stepping in front of Silas. But she saw the doubt flicker in the sheriff's eyes. In this territory, doubt was as deadly as a noose. In Eliza's cabin, with the sheriff taking notes, Silas told the story. He was a ranch foreman in Wyoming. He'd witnessed the head foreman beating a 10-year-old Mexican boy half to death for spilling grain. Silas intervened. The foreman pulled a gun. Silas shot first. A shoulder wound, not fatal. The boy lived? Sheriff Brody asked. Yes, but the foreman's father was a territorial judge. I ran, rather than face a rigged trial. That's his story, the sheriff said to Eliza. Thorne says different. Says Croft is dangerous. Thorne wants my land and my submission. Eliza shot back. Which one do you believe? The sheriff left to wire Wyoming. But the damage was done. Town meeting that night. Thorne's doing. Eliza went alone. She stood before the congregation while they shouted accusations. Harboring a criminal. Shaming the community. The preacher demanded she renounce Silas or face excommunication. Eliza looked him straight in the eye, her voice steady, ringing in the hostile silence. If protecting a child is a crime, she said, then I'll stand with the criminals. She walked out into a hail of jeers. When she returned home, the cabin was empty. A note on the table. You deserve a life, not a legend. Don't follow. S. Eliza collapsed. Then, through the window, she saw the carved fence post, her initials intertwined with wildflowers. She ran her fingers over the wood. The telegram arrived an hour later, delivered by the deputy. Charges dropped months ago, Mrs. Vance. Foreman recovered. No active warrant. Silas was innocent, and he was gone. Eliza walked to the barn, saddled her mare, loaded her rifle, and rode into the wilderness. She was not losing him. Not to pride, not to fear, not to anything. She tracked Silas into the backcountry, following hoof prints through the melting snow. He was heading back where it started, the place the wolves had found him, completing a circle, or ending one. She found him at dusk, sitting beneath the tree where his horse had died. The bloodstain was still visible on the snow. She didn't speak, just sat beside him. The silence held everything. Finally, he spoke. You came. You left. I had to. No, she said. You were afraid. Silas's laugh was bitter. The whole town will destroy you for me. The town doesn't decide my life. I do. She pulled the wedding ring from her pocket. The one from his saddlebag. We bury this together. Start new. Eliza, I followed you, she interrupted, because love isn't giving up when it's hard. That's just fear dressed up as noble. He broke then. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. I can't drag you into my wreckage. Too late, she whispered. I'm already here. Together, they dug a small hole under the pine. Silas placed his ring in it. Eliza unhooked the chain from a mantle and placed Mark's ring beside it. They covered it with earth and stones. New season, she said. New life, he agreed. A howl shattered the moment. Close. Multiple directions. They stood back to back, rifle and knife ready. Wolf eyes appeared in the darkness. 6 sets. Closing in. They remember me, Silas said. Good. Eliza replied, raising her rifle. Let's make sure they remember us both. The alpha, scarred and grizzled, fixed on Silas with ancient rage. It charged. Eliza fired. Missed. The wolf was too fast. Silas threw himself between Eliza and the snapping jaws. He took the bite on his left shoulder, the same side as his original wound. He screamed, driving his knife into the wolf's ribs. The alpha retreated, bleeding. The pack circled. Eliza fired again, dropped a second wolf. Silas grabbed a dead branch, wrapped his torn shirt around it, and lit it with matches from his pocket. Fire bloomed. The wolves hesitated. Fire was their ancient enemy, but hunger drove them forward. The alpha charged again, this time at Eliza. She stood her ground. The rifle jammed. The wolf was 10 feet away, then 5. Silas's torch caught it across the face. It yelped, stumbled. Eliza dove for her knife, came up underneath, and drove the blade home. The alpha fell. The pack broke, vanishing into the darkness. Silas collapsed beside the dead wolf, blood soaking his shoulder. Eliza tore his shirt into bandages, her hands shaking, but sure. I can't lose you, he gasped. Not after finding you. Then stop trying to leave. She wrapped the wound tight. He caught her hand, held it against his chest. Marry me, he said. Not because of the town, not despite them. Because I choose you, and I'm done running. Yes, she whispered. On one condition. We face everything together. No more noble exits. Dawn broke through the storm clouds. Winter's last gasp. The spring sunrise revealed a world melting, coming alive. They rode double back toward town, not hiding, not running. Together. 3 months later, the cabin rang with hammer strikes. Silas was building a crib. Eliza, for months pregnant, tended the garden where wolves once prowled. Spring had come, not as a miracle, but as a reward for surviving winter. They'd married 2 weeks after the wolf fight. A circuit judge, a small gathering. Sheriff Brody attended. A few curious neighbors. Many stayed away. Elias Thorne had left the county. The preacher had come privately, hat in hand. You taught us about grace, Mrs. Croft, he'd said. I am sorry. Forgiveness came slowly. Last month, Silas had rescued a child from the river. The mother's opinion shifted. The Fathers followed. The town was learning what Eliza had known all along. Courage wore many faces. They had taken in Pip, Gideon's orphan nephew, a boy of 8 who needed a family as much as they needed him. Silas taught him carpentry. Eliza taught him how to read. A family reconstructed from choice. Evening settled. Eliza and Silas sat on their porch, watching the sunset paint the land gold. Distant wolf howls reminded them that dangers still lived in the world. But so did they. Silas's hand rested on Eliza's belly. She leaned against him, breathing in the smell of sawdust and safety. Will the baby be brave like you? Pip asked, appearing in the doorway. Brave isn't not being afraid, son, Eliza said, smiling. It's loving people anyway. In the garden, where they'd buried the rings, wildflowers bloomed. Blue columbine, Indian paintbrush, and wild roses. Silas had carved a small wooden marker. Winter, 1887. Where love began. Not where it ended. Where it began. Winter always ends, Eliza said, watching the fireflies rise. Silas kissed her temple. And spring belongs to those who wait for it. The lamp glowed in the window. The same light that had guided him to safety months ago. Now, it welcomed a different man home. One who'd stopped running. One who'd learned that love wasn't the death of him. It was the making of him. Eliza and Silas's winter was brutal, but the spring they built together was stronger. They chose hope over fear and connection over isolation. Thank you for watching. If this story of survival and second chances touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a reminder that even in the darkest night, the dawn is coming. We'll see you in the next story.